First and foremost, my name is Elizabeth Guevara. I am a creative strategy lead here at #Paid. I also go by Ellie. And for those of you who may be new to #Paid, we're a creator marketing platform that helps brands build meaningful partnerships with creators to drive performance, creativity, and that long-term growth. And I am super, super excited to have Quentin Humphrey here, also known as Q, who's joining us today. He is the Director of Creative Intelligence at WGSN and a cultural strategist who really specializes in decoding youth-driven cultural and generational shifts. His work helps brands understand emerging behaviors and translate them into strategies that build relevance and long-term value. Today, he's going to be walking us through If You Know, You Know, how brands build insider status, exploring the new mechanics of relevance, and how creators, communities, and cultural signals help brands earn attention, trust, and resonance in a crowded landscape. So Q, we are thrilled to have you with us. Today's session is going to be recorded and added to our YouTube. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll save time at the end for that Q&A. Q, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the warm and lovely introduction, Ellie. Pleasure to be back with the wonderful #Paid team. I'm a long paid collaborator. They are an incredible group, and the intelligence is just flowing amongst everyone wherever we are. Today, we're talking about how brands earn insider status, because being seen is easy, but being recognized by the right communities, that's the real flex. And that's where creators come in. They know the codes, they know the rituals, they know the jokes, they create the signals, and they make culture move way before the mainstream catches on. So today we're going to unpack how brands can use creators to enter some real scenes, but also build signals that people want to decode, right? And more than anything, you want to turn your audience into cultural capital. So let's get right into it. Boom, let's start with a shift. Relevance is moving, and being seen by everyone matters way less than being recognized by the right communities early. And creators help brands reach those communities with trust, with context, but also with fluency, which we know really matters, because everyone's trying to figure out how to be authentic, right? It's not a buzzword. There is a real play here. And here is the enemy in the room: sameness. Marketing is drowning in the blandemic. I know COVID's over, the pandemic's done, but the blandemic is here. It's the same formats, it's the same language, the same algorithmic polish. Also, AI has started to make everything smooth, right? And consumers can feel it. And this is depicted by the fact that nearly 3/4 say that very few brands actually stand out as different. And so that's why If You Know, You Know matters. It gives brands a way out of the gray mush, out of the sea of sameness. And it's not about yelling louder, but by showing up with context, specificity, and also a point of view for the right people, of course. And again, If You Know, You Know is about cultural recognition. It's the moment when a brand, a creator, or a community signals land with the people who actually understand the reference. You actually get the joke, you can chuckle. Yes, that recognition can turn attention into cultural capital. And this is really important because you can't be everything for everyone all the time. Yes, mass appeal does have a ceiling, it has its limits, because culture doesn't move as one audience, and we know that. It moves through niches, and that culture-led specificity is what gives brands sharper entry points and also makes scale feel so much more meaningful. And so here's a quick look at our agenda. We're going to breeze through this on this Wednesday afternoon. We're going to start by breaking those insider status moves into some real bits that we can talk about from a cultural perspective, because culture has an address. Next, we're going to talk about how some of those signals can be decoded for those who actually care. Third, we're going to talk about the group chat, because the group chat is actually an intelligence system. And fourth, we're going to talk about loyalty with this inner circle economy. But on to the first shift. Culture has a street address, and the strongest creator partnerships don't just target culture from the outside, they smooth their way in to the real scenes with the people who actually have the credibility that matters. And localization used to mean swapping a city name, getting a picture of a different skyline, maybe a neighborhood reference. Ellie and I were just talking about Dime Square here in New York. And yeah, I think that used to be a way to just make your way in, but the bar has moved, the goalpost has shifted. People know when a brand has actually been outside, right? And they know when a brand is actually within the communities that matters. So the new test is whether you understand the local ritual before someone from that place has to explain it to you. Do you know the joke or did you look the joke up online? That is the question. And local relevance, believe it or not, actually does have commercial power because people want to feel the brand understands that context, and creative partnerships can make that understanding feel lived rather than simply targeted. Of course, we're going to be targeted, but at least make me feel like you know what I'm talking about before you do. And events work when they can help people feel connected to their local community. Creators, of course, bring the social texture. They make the moment feel like a scene and not just an activation. And that's why local matters commercially, right? Events aren't just moments of exposure. Well, yes, they are. But for younger consumers, there are always ways to feel connected to the place and to the people around them. We don't need to dive into the fact that Gen Z is very lonely, right? So they need some help. And so the brand opportunity is to create the kind of gathering that makes community feel more like itself, not just a commercial opportunity, but a community touch point. And culture is sprinting right in front of us. It travels through scenes way before it becomes market behavior. For brands, the opportunity is to identify where the energy is gathering and then partner with those creators who are actually shaping it. And the best creator activations feel discovered, right? Like you stumbled upon, like, ooh, wow. And they give people that sense that they found something within their community rather than being pushed into a campaign or pushed into a marketing beat. But strategically, there is a way to activate this. And the strategy is to embed the brand inside some of those creator led behaviors, inside some of those rituals, and inside some of those routines. The creator should not just feel like a media placement, right? Of course, we know that is the back end play, but this should feel like a reason that the brand belongs here. And there's some leading signals that you just have to keep on your radar. Diplo, the world-renowned DJ, love him or hate him, a bit of a polarizing figure. But Diplo's Run Club shows how a creator or a DJ can turn a behavior into a social ritual. And the value is not only on the run itself, it's on the community, it's the content, it's the sense of belonging created around it. This is an important signal because there's lots of conversation, especially online, about how these run clubs have effectively become the new dating apps, the new social circles, right? Social sweating is increasingly popular. And creators who are leaning into this idea of social sweating, maybe because they aren't drinking, are leading the conversation from a brand perspective as well. So, yes, Diplo's Run Club is one of many, but this is a leading signal of what is to come. And then we have Jenna Littner, who shows how a specific cultural ritual can actually open a cultural lane for so many different brands. Race day makeup, again, social sweating is a big part of this conversation. But this race day makeup becomes more than just a beauty content moment. It becomes a recognizable behavior within the running culture. Because one, if your makeup looks good after the run, then it's going to look good everywhere. But sometimes it's up to the creators to show us what exactly they're doing from a routine perspective or what products they're using during that run that actually set the tone for how they're going to feel once they cross that finish line or wrap things up with their running club. But the commercial implication is pretty simple. And this is something that you really need to know. This is a bar. This is a punchline. This is a Qism. Culture is global, but credibility is local. And that's the takeaway here. Brands scale better when they start with the rooms, right? Niche down to blow up. And it's those rooms, those roots, those rituals. That's where the trust already exists, right? That's where you go in and find the authenticity. And then you take that credibility and then you scale it to exactly where you want to go. So keep that in mind. Culture is global, credibility starts very, very locally. Switching gears, because the second shift is signal, and the strongest creator partnerships do not over explain, right? Again, this is what we're here to talk about. If you know, you know. And so the strongest signals, the strongest creator partnerships, the strongest relationships with the most influential folks use the cues that communities can already recognize, that the communities already interpret well, and that these same communities can remix and add to their own matrix as well. And this is an important note here. Distinctive brands, brands that you know, brands that have their own signature, their own je ne sais quoi, if you will, they don't always need to yell because it's their assets that are strong and the community understands the code, those subtle signals, and they travel way further than obvious branding, of course. And it's important to make the moment worth clocking, right? You want to clock that moment. And consumers want brands to surprise them at the same time, right? We want authenticity, but also we want a little bit that maybe isn't so obvious. And that doesn't always require spectacle, although spectacle is great. Sometimes the most powerful move is a detail that simply just rewards attention and gives people something to clock, something to lean into, something to recognize. And logo mania is coming back, but it has some manners this time. I know, again, I'm not saying quiet luxury is out the window, but again, there is a bit of a shift here. But the next flex is a bit quieter, right? It's a phrase on a cap. It is a logo on a haircut if you're in Brazil. It's a color only the real ones recognize, right? A logo placed somewhere unexpected, of course. It's a cue that says, I know exactly what this is without needing to announce it to the whole room. And that's the quiet flex. And status is moving away from obvious branding to insider recognition, right? If you know recognition. And so the signal doesn't have to shout to the people who already know because that's what matters. We're talking directly to you, even if it is a whisper. From a brand perspective, you want to give your distinct assets range. Let them move across touch points, right? And if a creator partnership only works when the branding is obvious, then the idea maybe just isn't strong enough. It isn't clever enough because strong assets should still be recognizable when they move through a creator's world, through their lens. You don't want to give them the script. You want to talk with the creator and have them speak their language. We'll get into language in just a bit. But Boy Smells, the delectable candle and fragrance brand, partnered with Vanilla Mace. And this works because the brand enters the creator's visual language. The product isn't just placed in the frame, dropped into an IG carousel, or just used in a TikTok video. It's placed methodically. It becomes a part of her mood, a part of her styling, a part of her identity system, right? And that's giving the product range. I mean, sometimes the content is so riveting, you feel like you know what it smells like before you even get a chance to smell it because the content is just so freaking good. And then there's Duolingo, who we know always do a phenomenal job. This isn't just a genius stunt. This is the audience using more than just shared context. They always hit the mark. But thinking about something that's mass, thinking about something that is a bit more emotive, if you will, with IKEA. And you don't think about emotional things coming through in furniture, but this is what happens because they prove that the quiet signal is actually very important and the product doesn't need to scream. And if you take a look at these adverts, you don't see anything. You just see some raw emotion, maybe a tear because yeah, putting furniture together can be difficult. I have tried my hand at it. I'm not the best at it, but the quiet flex is the best. And the brand is persistent and they're present because the feeling is unmistakably there. And that, again, is how you really lean into this conversation about the quiet flex. Sometimes it's about letting the emotions do the speaking for you. And so the takeaway here, the commercial implication, the bottom line is that recognition is an asset. And subtlety is how brands prove that the asset is strong enough to move through culture without constant explanation. You don't always want to have to tell the community or the creators what you're doing. The content can speak for itself. And when it's it's tactful, when it's strategic, there is no question about what the message is or what the call to action is as well. Shifting gears over to the group chat, because now we're getting deeper into the internet layer. And the group chat is the focus group because culture is being tested, it's being rejected, and it's being remixed and canonized in real time. And by the time something starts to look like a trend, the people who have made it are already bored, right? If we're calling it a trend now, the folks who are on it, who built it, who incepted it, they're doing something else and they're laughing at some of the brands who are lagging behind. That's not to say you still can't get in it and it's not an opportunity, but it's important to know that by the time a trend reaches the Monday meeting, the Monday stand up, the group chat's already moved on, right? And that's the uncomfortable truth with some big organizations. Cultural speed does not care about approval cycles. Brands need better listening, sharper instincts, and creators close enough to tell them what's already dead, which again is the power of hashtag Paid's platform because they are on it, of course. But take a step back. It's important to know the landscape before you dive in to the field. Every community has grammar, and there are so many ways of speaking, joking, styling, reacting, and all of those things signal belonging, right? That belonging is your authenticity. Do you have a right to play here? Can you make the joke with us, or are you coming off as cringe? If you're meant to be cringe, then go for it. But if not, it's about finding the right creator who already understands the grammar before the brand even enters. Because again, every community has a language and a grammar, and the right creator already speaks that language, right? It's going to be natural for them. From a strategic lens, it's going to be important to let creators and communities leave fingerprints on the work. The work being the content, sometimes the work being the product as well. And so the next strong idea might come from a comment, a Discord joke, or it might be deep in a subreddit somewhere, right? Maybe it's a cheeky message on LinkedIn, if you will. But this is why it's important. We're thinking about co creation, but we're thinking about it from a fresh perspective. And Brooke Monk works because the product arrives with the context already attached. Her lashes sit inside the beauty world. Her audience already knows soft glam, routine, intimacy, most importantly, trust. And that means the brand does not have to over explain itself. The context is clear. And that's the signal. When a creator already owns the code, the product relevance simply travels faster. Shout out to Brooke Monk. What a phenomenal creator. And again, beauty entrepreneur as well. She does a lot of things. Here's an interesting example as well. Reddit is powerful. I mean, at this point, we know when you search on Google, many answers, or even if you are an LLM user, which we all are, right? If you're on chat, a lot of those answers are coming from Reddit, believe it or not. Those are human answers that the machine is pulling from. And Skoda understood the assignment here. Car people love opinions. They are one of the most opinionated groups online, and they're very well informed with those opinions. And so Skoda let the brand, well, use their brand. They let the community shape the car through the comments and upvotes. Yes, they let people on Reddit design the car. And that move turns audience from critics to co-authors, to co-designers, right? We used to talk about co-creation. Now the conversation is about co-authorship. How do we tell the story together, right? Not just make the product together. Let's tell the story together. Let's get some insight from the audience and develop something very powerful. On to one of my favorite brands today. Coach is absolutely crushing it, right? I mean, just go look at Tapestry's earnings. They are booming out of the gym. And Coach is winning. Why? Because they speak the language that people already speak, right? They aren't swagger jacking. They aren't doing anything that feels out of touch. Coach lets Gen Z communities shape the campaign insight, shape the story, but also be a part of the rollout. I mean, whether it's their beautiful popsicles, whether it's the play stores, or even just their campaign language, what's the result? Well, it's content and products that feel so connected because the audience was treated as an active and creative participant rather than just a target, which is important. So, what is our takeaway here, Q? Why does this matter? Well, your next insight department may still be in the office, but they may look like a creator bench, a creator roster, a subreddit, or a very awake and uber online social team. So instead of research, we want to blend that with what we're seeing in the real world. And the brands that move best will combine data with cultural listening in tandem with the human intelligence from people who actually know the room. On to our final section. It has been so much fun hanging out with you all. This is where we turn if you know into loyalty. Insider status cannot stop at just a clever signal. The question is how brands actually use it to pull in their best customers, bring them in closer, reward that actual participation, but most importantly, create levels of access that people actually care about. Insider access is everything. Fandoms are so strong and powerful because they are super closely connected to all the things that their favorite artists, creators, and brands are doing today. And something that you need to keep in mind is that community carries a premium. Almost 40% of consumers would pay extra for events focused on community building. And so that tells us that belonging is becoming a part of that value proposition. People aren't only paying for one thing, right? They're paying for access, they're paying for proximity, and they're paying for the people around it. And look at this. What do you know? Is it another running club? Could be. Again, social sweating, belonging, whatever it is that's going to get us away from this loneliness epidemic is what we need to lean into from a brand perspective. And so here's our strategy here. We want to turn loyalty into proximity, points, and perks. All of that still matters, but the bigger play is access because your best customers, your fans, your communities should feel closer to the brand than just the outsiders, right? They should feel like they have the file, they have the path, they have the skeleton key to the room, they have the ritual, they have the early signal that lets them know that, hey, we actually are a part of this community. And Spotify is actually making the algorithm feel like a velvet rope. And your listening history is becoming proof that you actually were there before the tour announcement, before the ticket rush, before the casuals pulled up and started reselling tickets. And so that's the inner circle economy in action. It's consistent participation that turns into access that fans actually care about. Here's another one to keep on your radar. Substack Health Gossip partnered with podcast Stargirl to host a ticketed all-day wellness retreat for 25 readers. Yes, we're going from the pages to the Pilates. Well, not technically the Pilates, but you get what I'm saying. You know, it's really about that insider access and really thinking about how we work that into the beauty conversation with Merit. Participants shared daily routines. They learned new massage and meditation practices and also made their own flower essences. Beautiful job. This is a triumvirate. Sometimes it's about the partnership that really brings it all together. And Dropbox tapped Fred again. We love Fred again's music, but this is important because this is about giving those earliest fans the files. If you didn't know, they locked their phones up during Fred's last tour, so no one really got content. But guess what? You get the files. You get to be a part of the conversation to remix them, edit them, and do what you please. That's what it is. It's about giving that access in person or maybe just online with files. So don't just give fans access to the moment. Give them access to the making of it. Let them behind the scenes. Let them know that you actually care about their craving and affinity to be insiders. And so, to close us out here, the future of loyalty is privileged participation. One more time. Privileged participation, P squared, double P. Give them the access, the authorship, the proximity, and the proof that their participation actually matters. And here is the new relevance stack very quickly. Place is where credibility starts. Signal is where recognition travels. Community is where meaning gets made. And access is where that loyalty compounds, right? That's where you want to get to. And here's how you win in the if you know age. Start with the room that cares the most, build the signals that people can decode, let the community shape the work, and turn loyalty into access. That is the if you know playbook. Specificity creates the spark, recognition creates the feeling, right? Participation creates the spread, and access creates the loyalty. And so, one final question that I want to leave every brand with, and this is because loyalty isn't just about points or discounts, it's really about that level of emotional advantage that you can start to create. And so, what does your brand give its best customers that money can't technically buy? Hopefully, it's a feeling because all of the feels go a long way. And so, leave you with that. The future of creative marketing is not about finding someone with an audience and asking them to post. It's about finding the people who understand the room that you want to enter. And this is where hashtag pay becomes so powerful because the right creative partnerships should not feel like media buying. It should feel like cultural matchmaking. No, we're not swiping right or left. We are creating deep partnerships that matter so much for communities and for brands alike. And with that, I want to thank you for joining. It has been such a delight to be with you all on this lovely afternoon.
And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We might have about a minute to answer one. So we'll give you guys a couple of minutes. If not, Q, one question that I have for you is we are entering in this era where pretty much everyone has access to the same trends, AI tools, and social listening, right? So as access to signals becomes a lot more democratized, what are you seeing in terms of what separates people who can spot culture from people who can actually truly understand it?
That is a great question. That's the $1 million question on cultural fluency. I think spotting culture is seeing the signal. Understanding culture is knowing why people care, right? We can see something, but do we know why it matters? And that's the difference. A dashboard or data can tell you what's rising, but a creator can tell you what it means, who it belongs to, why it's spreading, and why it makes a brand look out of place if they aren't speaking authentically. So the people who really understand culture don't track behavior. They understand emotion, they understand context, timing, community codes, religious celebrations, traditions that are deeply rooted in things that actually matter to people's values. And so they know when something's a joke, when it's a ritual, when it's a flex, if you will, a rejection of a real shift in the values. And so I think that's what brands can actually learn from creators. They have instinct because they're constantly participating, not observing from a distance, which brands can do sometimes, but creators are inside the feedback loop.
Thank you so much, Q. That